Let us start discussion today on ancient Indian rural housing. And if you recall that in earlier lectures we had discussed about basic needs, that is your agriculture and also textile. And let us start this lecture with a thought process from Mahatma Gandhi, who says, I do not want my house to be walled in on all sides and my windows to be stuffed. I want the culture of all lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible, but I refuse to be blown off my feet by any. It is very important that we should learn from others, as our Veda says, but at the same time we must retain the fundamentals of our culture, heritage and scientific tradition. And let us look at that about housing in ancient India. Some of the questions might be arising in your mind. What are the purpose of house? Of course, most of you know that it is basically protection against weather, and in recent time there is a lot of climate change, so we will have to look at it. And beside this, animals, insects, creatures and which are harmful for human life and property, we will have to protect also. And the theft, of course, safe storage is very important, and that is the characteristics of modern human being. If you recall that or if you go back to our history, the theft was almost not there in this country. Even today some villages are without any door and locked in that, particularly in Maharashtra region. And beside this, we will have to also protect ourselves against the natural calamities like flood, cyclone, earthquakes and other things. So, apart from that, people do rear the cattle and other animals, and we need to also store the not only the agriculture product, but also the other accessories or items of our day to day uses. And considering ancient Indian culture, we need to look at what are the houses what we are having. Generally the rural houses were detached from all four sides, and not always true, but if you see at least in 50 years back or maybe earlier, that most of the houses were having separated out due to several reasons. One of them, of course, privacy, other is ventilation, but privacy is a new concept, it was not there earlier in our culture. But what I feel that it might be that people were having lot of lands, that is one, and other thing that they were using thatched house. So, for fire safety they might have kept the house separated out little bit. And beside this they will be having a lot of land around for cultivation, and boundary wall were made earlier days by mud wall or a low tree or shrubs fencing, what we call hedge. And even some houses you may find that it is not without any boundary, because there will be land where they will be cultivating. Okay. So, in front of yard a plant of Tulsi was kept, particularly in Hindu tradition, and because we revere the Tulsi plant. And in the backwards, even in front also sometimes there are vegetable and herbal garden as well as seasonal fruit trees, which are a part of rural housing earlier days. And trees like asoka, neem, mango, etc. are kept around the house, and there are various reasons. It can also help to thwart the wind, particularly in cyclone time, and of course it can maybe sometimes fall on the house itself, but it will give a resistance. And Vastu, a traditional Hindu system of architecture, which was very much there, and today it has evolved or rather it has rejuvenated in a different form. Although it is attached with a lot of superstitious, but if you look at the scientific part, it is quite interesting. One can look at it, which I will not be covering, but I am just mentioning it here for you people to explore it and find out whether what are the right thing with that. And this Vastu, which is a Hindu system of architecture, helps to integrate the architecture with the mother nature, and which encompasses a flexible design guidelines not only for the space, sunlight, flow, and also its functionality or the function. So, therefore, it is important to look at, but I am not going to cover that here. And as I told, Tulsi is very important, and it is being placed in the front and also the backyard of the house. And I have just shown you they do river and then make a lot of pujas and other things. Besides this, it creates a positive energy, what people say, because you are having belief system. And Ayurveda's best herb after Amrit, and it has been proven scientifically, Tulsi is medicinal, very great medicinal plant, and it is a sure solution for cough and cold in human body. I have tried because last 3-4 years I am experimenting with myself, and I have not taken any antibiotic medicine, and whenever I am having cough and cold due to the seasonal variation, I just resort to the Tulsi, and it is a cure for several other diseases, as I learned from the Ayurvedic book. So, one has to look at it. So, it is very important, that should be a part of our house. Besides this, Indian traditional is to welcome the guest, Atit Deva Bhava, and we always welcome the people of outside, and then this thing. And if you look at, you will find there are several signatures of our civilizations. I have just shown here, which is some of them you place in your home, like Atit Deva Bhava or Suva Labha. Labha means is basically profit. It is should be auspicious, then only the profit will be, and this is the signature of Indus Valley civilization. It is not that we will be get away by the profit alone. It must be beneficial for the mankind, then the profit is good. So, beside this, there is a yantras which is shown here in this place, and which is having a lot of importance related to our culture and heritage, particularly in tantric systems. It is lot of importance is there. I am not going to discuss about it. So, these two are basically the feet impression of the newly married bride who enters the house, because we consider them Lakshmi, and that is the symbol. We welcome the bride to our house, and we also keep it our mind. And there is another important symbol what we keep in front of our house is the swastik chin, and it is having lot of importance of not only psychologically but also the religiously. So, therefore, that is the things one has to keep it. And of course, there are several ways people are having. There will be painting, various paintings we keep, and tradition. And because this brings happiness and pleasant environment inside the house, and this kind of symbols what we use as a part of our culture, and some of the goddesses and other things, that brings positive energy inside the house, which is very important. So, why we need to look at and rethink about ancient Indian housing? If you look at today, due to the cultural invasion and the globalization and the marketization of our life, that we are losing the cultural heritage of across our country, and particularly in the as a result the local housing is not there. All are replaced with the same concrete and mortar kind of building structures. Earlier days, if you look at from Kashmir to the Kanyakumari, each state or each place will having their own tradition of making houses, which are depending on their weather condition, depending on their culture and other thing. Today it is not the case. So, as I told, modernization is really throwing all our cultural way of designing and developing the house from our life, and we are just copying and pasting and forgetting about our tradition knowledge which was there for together, and is just going to dustbin, and we do not have a documentation for that. That is very important. I must urge upon you people, whoever having having some interest in this, they should document the way of making not only the house, but also the other traditions, so that at least it will be written. And beside this, most of the houses today are not ventilated properly, they are all sandwiched between two houses, and not many these things are, and it is not hygienic to larger extent, let me tell you. Particularly in rural areas where people are not that educated and also not that wealthy to afford to that for a better construction of house. Unhygienic and less or non-ventilated house, as I told, and various problem related house they are facing today in rural areas. For example, privacy, neighborhood feeling that is being receding in rural area, which was the hallmark of our rural life, rather Indian life. And there is a very low mentality of the people nowadays of not sharing and then caring of the people, and cost of land is increasing, and so also encroachment, and local land policies is in doldrum, is in trouble. So, therefore, they are facing several problems, and Indian native architecture is almost on the verge of extinctions. So, that is very important, we need to, and those are developed over the years by our forefathers, and we need to relook at. I am not saying that we should copy and use that today, but the fundamentals or the basics should be retained. And the other characteristics of ancient Indian housings are major materials used in house construction in rural areas were locally available. So, that transportation cost and then other cost will be reduced, and it is they are aware about it. And today people are not aware about whatever things are available in their areas, but they may be getting from outside. That is the fallacy of the present system. And construction technique was as simple as possible, so that the knowledge was with the local people, and they were also learning from generation to generation, passing that knowledge to others. Person living could construct, repair, maintain it by themselves, they feel good about it. They feel that they have built the house, not the workers, and local architecture, cultural heritage were maintained, and good health of the residents, which were considered the prime important for making a house, but today it is not. And positive energy creation in the house were also a part of this thing, which was emphasized in Vastu system, and spirituality and attachment in the family, because when you do together and you own that house, own means literally owning, not that owning only from the investing money and then making a house, but you feel that I have made this, and then that part attachment is important, and which is important, that values of human life were preserved, which is at stake today. So, that is the things we need to, therefore, we need to look at our ancient Indian way of making house and maintaining house. So, if you look at major components of ancient Indian house are basically floor, wall and roof. Of course, here I have shown you something about that. This is your roof, and these are the wall. Of course, the floor is here, like which is you can say veranda kind of things. So, rural material house basically stone and bricks. Of course, bricks you can make yourself, not you buy. I remember that when I was a kid, that local people were knowing how to make brick. But today if I go back to the same place where I had learnt how to make brick in my childhood, today they do not know how to make, and they buy that from factories. And mud, which is plentifully available, and wood, bamboo and agricultural waste were being used for making houses, and which was basically sustainable. And even the brick you can to some extent sustainable, of course stone is not sustainable. And today what we use are not sustainable, and earlier days houses were sustainable. Let us see that what do we mean by mud, because today we are not aware about the mud. And earlier days mud was the part of life, not only for agriculture, for making houses and having pond, and then several other things is a part and parcel of our life. So, mud is basically a mixture of different kinds of soil. It can be loam, it can be silt, it can be clay. Of course, you will have to add some water kind of things. And when you say it is a mud brick, basically we call mud brick means which is not baked. Of course, today we are using baked mud brick, and when it is not baked, it is known as adobe, and it can be made by mixing mud with water and placing this mixture into a mold. Like for example, here this is the mold, and in which this will be, the mud will be packed, and then it will, for getting the shape of that mold, particular shape, and then allowing it to dry in open air with the help of course sun drying. And people do add this straw and then some kind of a rice husk and other things, and straw is used as a binder within the brick, as it adds a support to the lattice, because whenever a brick is subjected to a force, right, the straw will redistribute the force throughout the brick and decreasing the chance of breakage, and these are the traditionally is being used, and that also similarly sawdust and other agricultural waste being added to the mud also for making brick. So, this is a house which is made out of mud, not only the wall, also the roof in Punjab, even still in some places being used, and of course, this is a pakka house, and there is a kacha house also, like this is basically mud wall, and this is a thatched basically thatched roof, but here the roof is flat and also it is made of mud kind of things. We will be discussing about it. Why do we use mud for construction of house? Because it is easily available for community participation and used by unskilled labor. If you look at earlier days in the rural areas, we are having ponds. For maintaining ponds, you need to sometimes remove the what you call mud from the pond, and those mud generally were taken by the people who wants to make the construct the house. And it is a very total system cycle was there, and it is beautifully narrated in several places, some kind of things, but unfortunately today the pond is not there, and even the mud from the bottom of the pond is used for the field for agricultural purposes also. And it is this adobe or the sun dried bricks are easy for cutting and turning or adjusting the dimension of mud brick, unlike the other one which is little difficult, but you can use also, that is the baked mud, and no energy is required for making the mud brick. Mud brick means I am talking about adobe, right. As the solar energy is used for drying, and cost wise it is like a lot of saving, almost 40% cost as compared to the brick, and the use of mud in building a good acoustic and insulation. It is basically gives a very good insulation, so the temperature will be lowered down, unlike the concrete which will be absorb the heat and then kind of thing. And thermal insulation areas and act as a natural domestic air conditioner kind of things, and hence suitable for tropical and subtropical like areas like in India. India today people are using glasses for the window pane and then other brick and of course the mortars and cement they are using. Earlier days we are using lime and or the mud, which is the better material as compared to Portland cement today, and self sustainable and eco friendly, because it is eco friendly. You need not to make anything to burn the fuels or something to do that. So therefore it is very important to use mud, and mud is a part of our culture and we always revere it as a part of our rituals. So if you look at the thermal design of a rural house, and you can think of like this is a roof, of course, this is made of mud, right, mud wall, and the roof is a thatched house, thatched roof, and there is a overhang here. If you look at, this is the wall and this is the overhang. Now, why this overhang is there? Why not it will be just end wherever the wall is getting ended? And it is having, because it will protect the wall and other regions from the heating of the thermal, particularly in summer. And not only that, when you are using the mud wall and you are using adobe or the sun dried mud brick, then you will have to take care that water should not fall on the wall, it will damage it. So, that is another reason. So, let us look at thermal side, and when you look at, let us say we will talk about summer, which is June 21, the sun path will be from east this side, it will be going, of course, this is at the middle of the day, and then it will coming down. And in December it will be just in the angle will be different, and it will be here somewhere, and then if you look at shadow wise it will be changing. Of course, this is the east side, keep in mind, this is your east side and this is your west, similarly this is your north and this is your south. Now, if you look at June 21 is the mid summer, hence construction of overhangs or the eaves, what I told, this is the overhang, and helps to obstruct the summer sun rays, but in winter due to inclined sun, the sun is at a different smaller angle, it does not obstruct the sun rays to keep the house warm. That means, in the summer it will protect the house from the sun rays, so that it will not really heat it up, but in the winter it will allow the sun rays to enter into house and keep it warm. What a beautiful design it is, right. But today we are making house, we are not thinking about it, okay. Right. This is the same figure I am just doing. If you just rotate that inclined roof, if I will put house by 90 degree, the like this, if I say this is your east here, right, and this is your west, my house will be like doors are to the south, right, and of course, the windows and other thing will be north side and the east and west side. If you do that, morning sun will come on eastward inclination, right, and evening sun will come to the west side, it will come morning here, and morning from the east, and then we will go to the west. That is the normal thing in the summer, and winter will be like that way. So, that what will happen if you look at the, of course, this is taken for the 40 degree latitude, right, because that is corresponding to Indian condition. Of course, it will vary from region to region, that angle, but let us consider this angle. So, June 21st the sun rays will come directly here and it will hit the plinth area, this is your plinth area, then your wall is not affected by the sun rays, and provided this overhang is here, right. But suppose it could have been not there, then it could have been fallen here, whole building, it could have not. But in the winter what happens, this rays is having different angle, that is 26.6 degree kind of thing. So, then it will enter the inside and it will warm. See, that is the beauty of the design, right, and this of course depends on what is the length you will have to give, this length, and this length is very important, and they have developed that thing, right, over the years. Of course, it will be varying from region to region. It is not that they are knowing that precisely at that time, I guess, but they are knowing what is to be done. That is the beauty of the thing, traditional knowledge, but we do not know in modern time. Whenever we make a house, we will not have overhang, right, and say, oh, it is hot. Of course, due to global warming there is a rise in temperature, but we need to relook at this traditional wisdom of making houses, right. Let us look at another things. Of course, there is a one way of putting this overhang here, but there is a thick wall and having this angle also, like such that this again the summer sun can can be avoided, whereas the winter sun can enter into the house. Okay. So, that is the thing what you need to look at it, right. There are various design you can think of in across the country, but unfortunately we have not kept track of it and we do not have document, at least I am not aware of it, of course with my limited resources and then time I am spending for this work. This is not my usual work. So, and of course I had a talk with several civil engineering people and they say that they are not having any information, you know. I have talked with various faculty members. So, and also if you look at there is a, what are the other advantages of inclined roof house? I used to wonder why they are making inclined. So, keep in mind that these are the inclined house and these of course strips are there, these are bamboos or the strips, and it is to protect it from getting blown away by the wind. Okay. Now, if you look at the what happens to the solar, like if the solar rays are coming in and then what will happen? It will be, some of this thing will be reflected. If it had been the flat one, what it could have happened? Suppose it is a flat house, like this is like a flat house, what will happen? The sun will come and directly hit, right, but here it is reflected back and some of the of course heat will be entering into here and some of the heat also will go back, so that the less amount of heat, you know, will be retained in the house, and that is the beauty of putting this inclined roof, and we are not doing that. Okay. And of course the question arises, what will be you know, like angle we will be making, this angle what would be, and let me just to mention again thing that relative ability of roof surface to radiate absorb it, you know, because it will emit a lot of radiations also at the same time, and it is a bad insulation, this is also insulating materials, and it will not absorb the heat like concrete building. Concrete building like you know, and they will be absorbing a lot of heat, but here it is not very this thing. So, that is also another important point one you can think of. So, let us look at aerodynamic design of a house. Like of course, earlier days people were putting the house near the trees and there might be hillocks, right, and that is the reason why also people plant trees like neem, people and mango extra around the house, and so that it will act as a barriers, you know, for the wind, and at the same time it will allow the wind to enter. Okay. Are you getting? You are putting some barriers, so it will take the load, but the wind will come. But if it is cyclone, then there will be a problem, because you know, if the root uprooted the big trees and fall on the house, it will be damaging. So, that is also one as concern, but there are ways of doing. People, I remember, used to you know, tie the trees, olden trees, they will make it you know, what you call, identify it and tie it also, that they do, but that is a maintenance what need to take care, and it also affects your, the air quality will be improved by these trees, okay, particularly neem and even mangoes, right. So, that shape of the building is very important, building shape for withstanding wind load, generally rectangular shape house, you know, is being used, width will be around 1.5, length to width, if you look at right 1.5, and this is basically height to width, this height will be here, right, you can talk about this is your width, this will be height, and height to width 1 for use, basically if it is 1, it is a square houses. So, square houses are safest for the wind. If you look at most of the houses, numbers will be similar way, if you just look at, except few barring few of them, they do not know how to build a house, and in modern days we do not take it. And pyramid shape deep steep roofs is best for avoiding wind force damage, right, and building orientation is very important, right, because it is to be fixed with respect to direction from which wind or the tidal force is coming. Therefore, generally in angle it will be put it, that is the very important point which is there in Vastu, right. And traditional Vastu Shastra advocate, for example, if the wind is coming over here, right, then it will impact the wall, but we will come over, then it will be diverted, and then load will be less, and that is being reflected in the Vastu itself. So, therefore, we will be discussing more about the design of house in traditional wisdom, and in ancient days what you people were using. There is a lot of science involved in it, and they were practicing, not talking about it. So, with this I will stop over, and we will be discussing more about rural housing and its scientific aspect in the next lecture. Thank you very much.